once you're free to, be whoever you want to be in the game, it helps you kind of sink into that character.
It's a cool way to be to, yeah, attract those like-minded people.
Something nerdy is going to happen. And we're going to make it cool, I think.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outside of the Box and my kind of long-awaited recap of Indy POP Con, which I had the pleasure of attending in April. It was so excited to have the opportunity to go because I had never gone before. But one of the big reasons, for attending at least so many days as I did is I was really excited to hear that Outside of the Box was nominated and a finalist for the podcast awards that Indy Pop Con does every year. And when I tell you these awards are serious, there are some truly amazing podcasts with just some amazing people that are amongst the finalists. So to have been selected was an amazing honor. And I still can't even believe that happened. I certainly wasn't expecting to win, but it was just really awesome to be a finalist. Now, the category, the broader category that Outside of the Box was nominated for was a pretty wide range of different types of topics for podcasts. And this could have fit into a number of categories just because of what I do. However, this category could include health, education. There were just a number of them. And the other finalists who were in the category with me were The Plus Side of Z, which is more of a medical podcast that was nominated. And then the other podcast was Abandoned, the All American Ruins podcast, who was the winner of the category. And I checked that podcast out. And I mean, it is just like so professionally produced. It is an amazing show. So for those that are interested in like travel and history and things like that, I think it's a really cool podcast to check out. So highly recommended, but it was just really cool to get the opportunity to be there. And I just want to thank Brandon and everybody else that organizes the podcast awards for being able to, be there for that. So that was one of the things that I got to do. Another piece of the adventure there was getting to do a combat robotics workshop, which mainly consisted of me talking for quite a while about combat robotics and all of the different events and the ways to get into it and how you get started. All of those things that I've learned from all of the wonderful builders to kind of impart on people who are interested. I was very excited to see that there was a pretty good showing for the workshop. So if anybody who attended is watching this, thank you so much for joining. I hope that you build a combat robot and get involved in some local events because they're super cool. Just really excited to have the opportunity to do that, bring my robots, let people see, what a beetle weight looks like to kind of get an idea of where their level should be in terms of starting. The great news that came out of that is there is a very good chance that we may see a combat robotics event at Indy Pop Con next year in 2025. So if I hear more details about that, I will be sure to share those. I think that it's really exciting because we need just as many events as we can have. And then the last piece of it was getting to do the live podcast stage, which will be the main part of this episode to kind of see that. Now, that was definitely more geared towards the Talkin nerdy segment. And I was so thrilled to be joined by my friend Ashley, not the Ashley that for most of my episodes, but Ashley Foor, who is somebody that I went to college with. did a lot of the communications classes. And so I know her background, I know what she brings to the table, and she just happened to, love a lot of the stuff that we would be talking about. So I had her on as my guest and co-host for the live show. She did an amazing job, and it was so much fun to get the chance to be out at PopCon, seeing the people walking past and talk about all of these amazing fandoms that we love. So, I mean, overall, it was just a terrific experience. I really want to shout out PopCon and the great job that they did. I think they have so many interesting workshops that you can do. It was a little bit more chill than maybe some of the other cons, which actually I really liked. I didn't feel like I was suffocating by the number of people that were there. I thought it was really well done, really well, like things spread out and stuff like that. And just a really great time. So I am excited to see what PopCon has to bring next year, because I think that there's going to be a little bit more there involved. So check out, the rest of this episode, the live show that we did, and then also a clip with a really awesome guy, John Marks, who is a local guy that builds these amazing, like, different cosplays and props and big, like, working creatures and things like that, that you can take pictures with and sit on and interact with. And I think it's just an amazing thing that he does. I mean, not many people can be like a fan of Avatar The Last Airbender and say, I got to sit on top of Appa. I mean, it's just so cool what he does. And I hope that everybody enjoys hearing him talk about how he got started and all of that. So enjoy this for the rest of the episode. And I definitely hope to do more of these cons in the future.
All right, the live podcast stage is back up and running. And I'm really excited for this one to bring you the, is it first live podcast? First time at PopCon for Outside of the Box, Talkin Nerdy. So, without further ado, let's do this.
Hello, PopCon. I am so excited to be here. This is Christine with Outside of the Box. My podcast, we're primarily talking about robots, and you do see some robots at a con, for sure, with all of the Star Wars, the cosplay, and things like that. So today, though, we're just kind of talking nerdy in general, and I have my co-host for today, who is Ashley. Now, most that watch my show, so if you're watching the channel, you know that I do have a co-host named Ashley. However, this is a different Ashley, and I'm so excited to have you join me at PopCon.
Well, I appreciate you asking me to be here. I was a little surprised, but excited. It's my first time being on a podcast, so I'm ready to do it.
Absolutely. Now, I think it's funny because as fans, I mean, in the generation, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, but
You're not that
but still, as fans, back when, at least when I was in high school, being a nerd was not a cool thing to be.
No, it wasn't for me either. And when I was in high school, I saw Alice Cooper for the first time. So I started to dress like in like plaid, and I dyed my hair black, and like I got all crazy. And I honestly, I don't feel like I got made fun of, but I'm sure people were talking about it.
It definitely wasn't the norm.
No.
But I feel like over the course of time, all of this has come a long way.
Yes.
Looking back, I'm not sure exactly when it happened.
Right. It was kind of gradual, I feel like.
Yeah, it just slowly came to the forefront, but maybe as they started making more of the blockbuster movies and the comic space and things like that, that started to get people to say, like, hey, this stuff is pretty cool, and it's not something that I should be ashamed to like.
You're right, and I think you're right. When all the Marvel stuff started coming out more, it started to get cooler. And then when celebrities started talking about D&D, I think that really propelled D&D to even further than what it was before. So it's more of a not open secret, but like people want to play it.
Exactly. For anybody that's here live or watching the video of this, as you can see, I am fully in my Vox Machina cosplay today as Caliph, and you brought up a good point with D&D, because I think that not just Critical Role, but I think that that's the most public-facing organization that people know of, has done so much to bring that to the forefront of something that is cool to do, and for people to want to run their own campaign, learn how to play the game, watch other people playing the game.
There's much more exposure.
Exactly. I never thought for myself that I would actually watch like a show, a full-fledged show based off of a D&D campaign, and not only that, but have it be just so good.
Oh yeah, I'm amazed at how people play it, because when I play, I can't commit. I can't commit to like voices or anything. Like I try sometimes, but it doesn't. When other players don't either, it kind of. But to watch people like really commit to their character and the campaign itself, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I had Iffy Wadiway, who has done campaigns, I think both with Critical Role and Dimension 20 on the podcast, and something that I talked to him about specifically with D&D was just the process of being able to commit to a character and like go through, because sometimes when you have a character, you're hesitant to really dive into it. You're really hesitant to even like think of, should I do a voice, should I, like all of that. And I think that it's so important to like know you can just kind of let your weird out and be whatever you want that to be and whatever you want that to look like. And so it's exciting to see people really starting to embrace that.
Yeah, and I think it's just a confidence thing mostly is, you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to overdo it. But I think that watching people do that is the most exciting thing, because you can tell they're really having fun. They're really having fun and they're really, really into it. So I wish I could be more like that. And maybe I will.
It's very hard. I think it's a process. Not even just with D&D, but anything here. Even doing cosplay. Like fully committing to that versus, maybe you just throw on a headband or a pair of ears or like one costume piece, but kind of going all out and really showing people like, this is something that I love, and this is my take on this character that is so important to me.
I would love to do more cosplay. I've done cosplay once, and it was Daenerys from Game of Thrones, and my husband actually made the costume for me, and he made his own costume, and they both looked amazing, and I felt really awesome in it, like just because it was for Con of Thrones, so it was all Game of Thrones stuff anyway, but I would get, people brought little baby dragons, and they were giving them out to all the Daenerys cosplayers, and you put them on your shoulder, and that was really cool, and it made me feel really good. So I think just doing that is it's like a self-confidence thing.
Now, I know that you just got to PopCon, so it's really hard to say, like, what have you seen that's cool? Because you haven't really
seen it
much at this point, but you've been to cons before.
Right, yeah.
What would you say, for you is your favorite part of that experience?
Everything, really. Walking around the vendor hall, seeing what everybody has got to sell, all their creative things that you see, all the cosplay. Sometimes I see cosplay, I'm like, how did they even do that? Like, that's amazing, and being able to meet celebrities that you like really admire is really cool. But I think overall, just seeing all the people come together for the same type of thing. So maybe they're not there for the same reasons, maybe they're here to see one celebrity and that's it, or whatever, but just to see people coming for something like this together, and you get to meet all kinds of people. I think that's the coolest part.
Exactly. I mean, I really think like the folks that go to cons, it's really like a community because it's a lot of the same people go to every con that they could go to.
Right.
You know, because I think you get a different experience, different places.
Yeah.
You know, you have different vendors that you may see, you have different celebrities that you may see, and so it's not like you go to one con and you've seen everything that you could possibly see.
Absolutely not. No. And even if you go to one con, you might not see everything you want to see because depending on how long you're there and how big it is. Like I know Gen Con is huge and they take up the entire convention center and they take up the Lucas Oil Stadium, and like if you only came for a day, you wouldn't be able to do everything. So and I don't know, it is like a community. It's just everybody, you feel safe, I think.
Exactly. It's not unlike the combat robotics community, except the difference is that there are crazy death machines that could possibly kill you if you're not careful.
That's a big difference.
There's swords here. I mean, there's definitely a lot of swords, and I would be a little bit cautious with some of those.
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, it's a pretty safe environment.
Yeah. It's just the people make you feel safe. I think you don't feel like you're in danger around all these people. Like if you were just walking around in the city by yourself or whatever, it feels like you don't have to worry about it as much.
Well, and it's not just that aspect of it, like the danger aspect, but it's also, I think, the feeling of not feeling like you're being judged.
Yes.
Where, I mean, if I wore this out at, I don't know, a football game or something, I think a lot of people would raise some eyebrows and be like, are you trying to be the mascot or like what's going on here? But obviously, this is a con. This type of situation is 100% welcome. So it's nice to see everybody's creativity and what they love because it's so different for every person.
Exactly, and it's like you just get to see what they love on the outside. Like you don't have to even talk to them to know just by looking at them. Oh, they like this, they like that. I wonder, do they also like this? It's really interesting. I like to people watch, so cons are really good for that. On top of just, I don't know, just this experience of it all, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before this, we were talking about a couple of your, I would say, more favorite fandoms. Tell me a little bit about that, because I think it's just interesting to hear everybody's own take on what they love the most.
Well, I was telling you earlier, my oldest fandom that I have are the movie The Labyrinth and the movie Rocky Horror Picture Show, because I believe I saw Labyrinth when I was 5, and I would watch it every day, and I knew all the words, and I still do. And my mom, she'll tell stories that I would just, as the movie plays, I'm just saying the lines. And I mean, that continued on until now. Like, I still love that movie. And Rocky Horror Picture Show, my dad introduced me to it when I was a young teen. And again, that was another, after I saw it, I just watched it every single day. And I still love it. So those are my top ones. But I do love, I mean, there's so many that I just love. I love Game of Thrones, I love Walking Dead. I play Pathfinder. I play Pathfinder. Haven't played D&D yet, but hopefully soon we'll be doing that. And it's, Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things, and I just get really hyper-fixated on certain things for a while, and then I still love them, and I move on to the next one. And so it's like I just gather fandoms, and one that I'm really interactive with, and this is going to sound really stupid and weird, is there is a Facebook group. It's the Twilight shitposting group, and it's my favorite because I loved Twilight when it came out, and it's a love-hate group for Twilight. They talk so much crap about it, but also we all love it. So it's like it's a really fun community, and they're very inclusive. And they actually do a fundraiser every year to the Q tribe with the Native Americans, because Twilight never gave them money for that movie. So they do a fundraiser for them every year, and it's just a really cool group.
I think it's fair to have a healthy criticism for the fandoms that we love, because sometimes our fandoms just, they don't go the way that we want them to.
Yeah.
And it's fine to say, hey, we wish that this was happening instead. So, I think that's completely fair.
Yeah. And I know we both we have our fandoms and we love our fandoms, and the great thing about it is that ours don't necessarily align. We like some of the same things, but some of the things we don't. I don't know a lot about the things that you like, so it's just really cool because there's so many fandoms. There's just so many different types of things to like and be into.
Exactly, and that's why you come to a con.
Yeah.
There is something for everyone, and that is the coolest part.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you have those fandoms. I mean, obviously, we both share a love of the D&D, that type of stuff. But for me, I mean, obviously, I love Pokemon. Anybody who has ever seen this podcast knows that I reference Pokemon quite frequently. And Marvel stuff.
I do love some Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Avatar: The Last Airbender. For anybody that's at the con, if you have not gotten the chance to go up and ride Appa, you need to get over there right now and ride Appa. You will not regret the experience.
I'm gonna have to check that out after this.
Yes, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest Avatar fan ever. It is a very cool experience.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, there's plenty for everyone, because you have things here that you're going to really like. I have things that I'm going to really like, and that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's. I didn't even think about Marvel. So we're big into Marvel.
Okay. So then yes, we have that in common.
We do have that.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited for Deadpool 3.
Yes. I think most of us that have followed the movies for any length of time are very excited for Deadpool 3.
I think it's my husband's dream come true with Wolverine. It was when they announced that, he was very excited.
Everything was gradually leading up to this.
It really was, yeah.
So I think as Thanos would say, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a good way for, just to kind of get on that topic. And as two people sitting here who have ADHD, it's very, very easy to jump from topic to topic. But I think, that's an important thing in nerddom to talk about, is that I would say a lot of Marvel fans have felt that things just peaked with Endgame. And for a little while after that, it just didn't feel as good. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a tough bar to set, because that was just so good that it would be hard for anything to really live up to that.
Absolutely.
So, all fairness to Marvel, I mean, I don't know what else they could have done.
I agree. I mean, how do you top that?
Yeah.
Things that came out after that, I mean, they're good. It's not like it's bad.
Yeah.
It's just not as epic, I think.
Exactly. So I think when you look forward to what they're potentially doing with Deadpool 3, obviously there's a lot of the rumor mill is rampant. And so there's many theories as to what people can expect from that movie. There's obviously some things that are revealed. We know that we're going to see some characters that we've seen in the past, which is really cool to finally end this long-standing thing of X-Men can't be part of the Marvel movies.
That's exactly
I'm so glad that that's finally ended, because I feel like if you go back to the original X-Men series, the first movie, obviously great, fantastic. And then it just, didn't quite have that same level. And I think this is a chance to see some of those characters again and really put that out there in a way that we all deserve as fans of those characters.
Yeah, because I feel like Marvel, like now, will do it more justice. Like it would just be bigger, you know. I'm excited because I honestly don't know what to even expect for Deadpool 3 because it just feels like it's everywhere. There's everywhere.
Back to talking about stuff that is nerdy.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean that's definitely something that I'm really excited for. I don't know how much Star Wars you do, but
I've watched them all.
Okay.
I have seen them all. It's funny because my dad is a huge Star Wars fan. Like, I remember, like, I never watched the movies until I was an adult. But I remember him watching the movies when I was younger with the surround sound, and I would get so annoyed because it was so loud. And it's funny because he liked Star Wars and Star Trek. And I really never got into either one of those things, but he was the one that introduced me to Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it's just weird, but you know, I did really enjoy the Star Wars, but all of them, even the newer ones. But I'm not as huge into it. But
yeah, and I think that you and I might come from a slightly different place on that, just because I was like massively into the original trilogy.
Yeah.
It was like everything to me as a kid, and when the newer movies came out, I was like, they're okay.
Yeah.
This may be a controversial take among some of my friends and things like that. They're fine.
Yeah.
They're not bad, but it's just I didn't feel like it was really at that same level. And I think for me, probably especially when The Mandalorian came out,
I do like The Mandalorian.
that would I was like, this right here is what it should be and what it should have been the whole time, because it just really felt like that same level of immersion that I felt watching the original movies. It felt so much more real. I felt so much more connected to what was going on.
I agree with that because we haven't watched the newest season of The Mandalorian, but we watched all before that, and I loved it. And it does have that different feel. It has the older, like the original trilogy feel to it, more so than the newer ones. And I think with the newer ones, they had the more of the CGI, and it had more, obviously because we had the technology to do that, but back when the original trilogy came out, that was like, and still watching it now, you're like, gosh, that is so good for what they had, and so that's definitely, I can see that, but I do love The Mandalorian.
It still holds up. The original stuff still holds up for sure. Like I said, I think that it comes down to, maybe a combination of things, but like getting the right director who has the right vision to put it out there in the way that it needs to be, and having the right actors in place and the right characters as well. Because I think, well, obviously for The Mandalorian, the big thing that attracted everybody was Baby Yoda.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's like, well, I have to watch it because they have a Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
But for me, that show became about so much more than that. That was obviously one of the initial draws, but I think the rest of the characters were just so well developed, and the story was so well developed, and you were so invested of it, and it wasn't just for one character.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure, and I just love Pedro Pascal. Like, he's just so good in like everything I've seen him in. So, and I didn't realize that was him. I like, for some reason I didn't know he was playing I didn't know. And then when I found out, I was like, oh. And then he finally took his helmet off, and I was like, oh my god, that is him.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you've watched all of Game of Thrones. I have barely watched any Game of Thrones, but the only thing that I know regarding Pedro Pascal in Game of Thrones is
he was good.
They did that character dirty.
They did, and he was. That character is so smooth, very sexy, very like that kind of, and he just like played it off very well. And I was I was unhappy with that, and we're rewatching that with our son, who's 15, and we're not there yet. We haven't met him yet, but he watched The Last of Us with us, so I was like, oh, we're gonna get to see him again. So that's exciting. Sharing it with your kids is exciting.
It really
If they
is.
like it.
Exactly. Mine is too young to share a lot of my fandoms. We're at Pokemon right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at. But it's exciting to see what the next generation's going to grasp onto.
Yeah.
Because I think, like you mentioned with your dad, he introduced you to a lot of the things that you're into.
Yeah.
I would say that I feel the same about like my dad primarily, very much into like the sci-fi thing, Star Wars and stuff like that. But, some of those things that our parents like, we're like, well, that's lame. So it'll be interesting to see, especially with mine, is she going to like the same thing?
Yeah.
Is she going to go a different direction?
Yeah, my kids, my son, like, he has his very favorite thing is Adventure Time. Very favorite. And so he is currently growing his hair out. His hair is like down to here already. And he told me the other day he is growing it out at least until Halloween because he wants to be Finn from Adventure Time. And when Finn takes his hood off, he's got flowing blonde long hair. So he wants to grow it out, dye it, and then cut it off after that. At least that's what he says. We'll see if he changes his mind. I don't know. But my daughter, she just, honestly, I don't feel like she's got a big love of any type of fandom. She's a sports girl, and I guess that's a fandom in its own. Not really a nerdy one, but she likes the sports.
Go sport.
Go sports. I know. I don't know where it came from, but good for her because she's really active in athletics. Good for her. She does like to watch some TV shows. She's really like the Outer Banks show, so that's something, I guess. But I tried to show my kids when they were younger Labyrinth. They didn't really care for it like I did. So, but I know some people my age that watched it when they were young, like me, were scared of it. So I was like, really? I loved that. It was so fascinating.
Well, it's interesting though, like the movies that maybe would be a little bit more scary for kids today, I think was like normal for us to watch when we were growing up.
The never-ending story.
Exactly, the never-ending story, the most trauma that you will ever have as a child. But I think for me, for you it was Labyrinth. For me, it was The Dark Crystal.
And I never watched The Dark Crystal when I was young, which is so wild because it's both Jim Henson movies. And my husband watched The Dark Crystal when he was younger, but I don't think he didn't have the same love as I do for Labyrinth. But I tried to watch The Dark Crystal a few years ago, and I was like, man, I don't know, it seems boring. So I want to sit down and watch it again. And another movie that a lot of people loved as kids, and I never watched, was Princess Bride. And I finally watched it a few years ago, and I said, I really like this movie, right? I really like it. But I think if I would have watched it when I was younger, I would have loved this movie. This would have been it, And I think sometimes movies are kind of like that. Like, you have to see them when you're in that frame of mind when you're younger.
Yeah, that's something that I don't often think about, but I do think that in some cases with movies or TV shows, you kind of have to see them at the right point in your life where that's going to be meaningful to you, or like make sense for whatever is going on in your brain at the time.
Right.
Because I saw Princess Bride when I was very young, and that movie shaped my life, and like the way that I saw relationships and everything else, and like the sense of adventure that it has in it, like all of that, I think, and even the comedy. It's a very funny movie. So I think it has a little bit of everything.
And I really wish I would have watched it. And I wonder how different I would have been. You know what I mean? Like, I might have been, my personality might have been different. Who knows? But I watched The Labyrinth instead.
And the funny thing is that you mentioned that, and like the movies that you didn't see until recently, I've never seen Labyrinth.
You gotta watch it. David Bowie's in it.
I think I would like it.
I
But
think he would. There's a lot of, no, there's quite a bit of singing. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a musical per se, but it's David Bowie, so he sings some songs, and got the dance magic. And Jennifer Connelly's in it, and a lot of little goblins. So I think you would really like it. You might not, it might be the same as me with The Princess Bride. You know, I really liked it, but I think I would have loved it if I was a kid when I saw it. So yeah, you should watch it. It's good.
Exactly. Now, I did watch The Dark Crystal with my daughter, and I don't think that I've ever seen a child so emotionally affected by a movie. I mean, just the entire time, like the concern that she had for when characters were in peril, and just like everything.
See, now I gotta go home and watch The Dark Crystal, because I really didn't give it much of a chance, I think. And maybe I'm just comparing it in my head to Labyrinth. You know what I mean? I gotta give it another chance.
Yeah, hey, it's always good to give, you know, another look at some of these movies, because especially I think if it's something that's really beloved to a lot of people, to me, I'm like, there has to be a reason.
Right, exactly.
Like, there's a reason why so many people love this and like follow this and cosplay. And I mean, circling all the way back to, you know, you mentioned a while ago with like Rocky Horror. I mean, that's something that is so deep for so many people. It's weird because when people do the shadow cast, it's almost like a mini isolated con in a way.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Because there's so many people dressing up, sharing in this thing that they all have like a deep love for.
It's so cool.
And it's truly an experience. And I mean, I think it's one of those things that even for people that aren't super into it, like, you have to do it once just to understand.
You gotta watch these people do it. And like, it was so funny, a few years ago my husband surprised me when they did the shadow cast at the South Bend Civic Theater. He surprised me with tickets, and we went, and we were, I think it was at the end, and everybody was standing up and dancing, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked, it was my neighbor, and they're like, I don't know, in their 70s probably. And I was like, oh, hey, I was not expecting to see you. So it can span, well, any fandom can span the generations. And I think, and what you were saying before is like, you know, these fandoms they're beloved to people, and so you want to see what that's all about. One of the other movie franchises I didn't watch until last year, Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I know. So we watched all of them, and then we watched the Hobbit series, and they were awesome. They were great. Like, I loved it. I'm like, why didn't I watch this before? I don't know. And it's weird because that's another one that my dad loved. But there were ones that he didn't share with me. Maybe he didn't think I would like them. I don't know. But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I think that's a movie that, you know, a movie series that a lot of people have seen, whether they're super into it or not, just because it was so
big. Oh yeah.
At the time. But I mean, that one's it's an adventure to get through. I mean, it's
really
literally an adventure.
They're long, and there's so much that happens, but I really, really enjoyed watching, and I would watch it again, you know, and it's really interesting, because I like to do that stuff, like watching movies that I hadn't seen before, or reading books, like reading old, like, classic literature that I've heard so much about. I'm like, well, let me see what this is about. I'm like, oh, that was really good. I'm like, I don't know, that was a little meh, you know? So I like to see, because I have FOMO, so like, I want to see and do and watch, like, everything, like, but there's not a lot of time to do that. So it's like, I just want to be involved. I want to see what everybody's doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I really love hearing you talk about all of this stuff, because I mean, really, the essence of what I think my podcast has always been about is, I really love hearing people talk about the things that they love and they're passionate about, and just like finding out why. Like, for you, like, what is it about this thing? And
Yeah.
it's so like important and amazing, and you know, what keeps you going doing it? Because with a lot of these things, we invest, you know, time and money, and really all that we get out of it is like the love for what we're doing. We're not getting something tangible. It's really just the joy of being able to do it.
And also, I think a good thing that comes out of it is just being able to connect with other fans, like, and just like geek out about, like, oh my god, did you see this? You know, and like we're, like I said, rewatching Game of Thrones with our son, and when we watched it the first time, there are so many characters. It is really hard to follow at first. It's like, it's overwhelming. So we've been trying to explain things, and he's like, I know what's going on. But you know, because we were so confused at the beginning, and after we started, when we originally watched Game of Thrones, I started reading the books, and that actually really, really helped me understand who everybody was and how they were all related, because in the back of the book they have like a table of all of the families and the names and who they, like, who belongs with what, and I was like, okay, this is making more sense now. So but just like being able to share that with our son, like, I think he's into it, but we're only on the second season, so it's like, is he gonna really like it, or is he gonna be like, me? But I think the last few episodes, at the end, he's like, oh my god. It's like, okay, I think he's liking it. So I just think being able to share it with people, especially people that you love already, and just being able to talk about it. Because my brother, actually, I think my brother was the one who told us about Game of Thrones. So he was like, oh, you gotta watch it. And so it's just nice to be able to share with anybody and everybody.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, when you're talking about networking as a nerdy, you know, fan person, like, you meet a new friend, you get into a new relationship, one of the very first things that you do is just like, do you like these things? Have you seen these things?
Can we talk about this?
Yeah, exactly, because you want to have that bonding experience with those people, and, you know, do they have to like everything that you like? No, but is it cool if they share something that you really enjoy? Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's like with my Rocky Horror love. My husband, he likes it, but he doesn't like it like I like it. But he'll tolerate it, and he'll take me to see it, and, you know, but he doesn't love it like I do. But he's there for me. And same with Labyrinth. He's, you know, but again, it's those things that you grew up with. He didn't grow up with that stuff. He's got his own things that he likes. So I just think people are really fascinating anyway. So to be able to watch people and learn about people and what they like and what drives them, like what you're saying, like, why do you like this? Like, why? What brought you into it? I just think it's just, people are fascinating.
I agree. I think that's probably why we both went to school for communication.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah. It's like seeing what makes people tick and, like, how, I don't know, just what they like. It's really interesting. It was really interesting to learn how you manipulate what people like. Like when we learned about Disney and, like, what Disney likes to, they own, like, everything, so.
They do.
And that kind of pushes you towards different things. So it's like Disney is in all aspects of your life.
Yeah, whether we want it to be or not, that's just the way that it goes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, I think that being a nerd today, like, kind of circling back to the, you know, to the original topic, it's cool. I think most people I know have some kind of fandom that they're into. It's almost the polar opposite of the way that I feel it used to be.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
You know, like, everybody has their niche. Everybody has that thing that, like, drives them and makes them, you know, want to watch a show or want to watch a movie continuously, or, like, you know, do this and go out to a con and, like, celebrate it that way. So it's just so much bigger than it was years ago.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really, it's kind of uplifting if you think about it, like, because I think people were so afraid to be themselves because you get made fun of and put down and people just look at you and like, ugh, you know, and it's, I obviously that still happens because, you know, people aren't the greatest sometimes, but I just feel like everybody is more open and more themselves than ever before. You can just be you.
Exactly. I mean, you will still get that occasional where somebody's like, you're wearing a costume. Like,
Yeah.
are you 12?
Right.
No, I'm not. And I'm really excited about wearing this costume.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, like when you look around, things that I wouldn't even think that there would be fandoms for. There's there's freaking Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
over
I
there.
saw that. Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, again, a movie that I grew up watching and see people cosplaying that, like,
Still.
full out.
Well, I mean, they have the newer ones, but yeah, it's like, I know I was walking by somebody earlier and he had the whole like get up, and somebody I actually know, she did a cosplay at one of the cons, and it was she did a Ghostbusters, and she built her own little contraption, like whatever I can't remember what they're called now, but oh, see, look right there.
There's a Ghostbuster walking by us right now.
All right,
That's cool.
see, that's awesome. Look at that, who built that? Like, that's pretty cool. And just like the passion and time people spend, like you can really see what they love, and they want other people. I mean, most of the time, I won't say every cosplayer wants people to approach them, but you know, it's like when you dress up and people are like, oh my gosh, you look so great, you look so good, like that's really validating, I think. And just being able to dress up how you want and like represent the fandoms that you like. Hey, look, Mando. It's just it's really cool, and I just love how accepting everybody is now.
Yeah, exactly. And yes, I'm very much in oh look a squirrel mode right now.
I know, it's like, wow, look at these people.
Because there's lots of there's a guy over there dressed up as the guy from Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
that's cool.
We saw him earlier. I told my husband, I was like, hey, welcome to Jurassic Park. And he's like, what? And he's like, oh yeah. Did you know that the guy who plays that is the brother of David Attenborough?
I did not know that.
So now, like, every time I watch a nature documentary that is narrated by him, I think of the Jurassic Park guy.
Fun fact for my viewers who follow robots, I'm pretty sure that over in the UK they believe that David Attenborough is the reason that Robot Wars got canceled. So there you go.
Really?
Well, you know, he had a very popular show over there, and they wanted to show that and not Robot Wars. So you know, like.
I love David Attenborough.
David Attenborough is really cool. So.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah, but I mean, that just shows you how much, like, I wouldn't even think of doing a Jurassic Park cosplay.
Right, me neither. But it's really cool to see.
Somebody thought of that, and that's awesome. I mean, it's really, like you mentioned, it's nice to get that recognition. I mean, you know, I've done a few cosplays, and I don't think any of those times I expected anyone to say anything about them, and to have people, like, look and say, hey,
that's
like,
cool.
You're that character. I love that character. It's a really awesome thing to hear. And I mean, that's why, like, I think as people are walking around the con, give the cosplayers some love.
Oh, yeah.
Like, let them know, hey, that's a really awesome thing that you did, because people put so much time and effort into it. And I think that that's one of those things that is, you know, unless you're in competitions all the time or you do it professionally, you just don't get enough love for like taking the time to do something like that.
Yep, absolutely. And whenever, you know, I see people dressed with cosplay, I always try and compliment people, like, oh, that's cool, or like, can I get a picture with you? That's so cool. Like, I love this character, and it makes me, like, I've only done the cosplay once, but it makes me want to do it more. I'm not as creative. My husband is the creative one, so he would probably have to make my costumes. But he does really good. He does a good job at it. But like I want to represent the things that I love, you know, and I think that's just what a cosplay is all about. It's like, this is who I am, this is what I love. Come ask me about it.
Exactly. And I think one of the coolest things too, which is something that, you know, people have the ability to do at a con, is not only get to have, you know, other fans see that cosplay, but potentially somebody from that property,
yes,
that franchise that happens to be here see that cosplay. I mean, I saw just an amazing Frodo cosplay as I was out there like waiting in line, and I'm like, I really hope that person's gonna go meet Elijah Wood, because that would be just the most awesome thing, to go up to the person who played the character and be like, look, this is my representation of this very beloved character that you have played.
When we went to the Con of Thrones, there was this guy that was dressed up as Jon Snow, and I kid you not, he looked exactly like, his face looked exactly like Kit Harington, and I was I couldn't get over it. And then we went, like that night we went to Dave and Buster's after, and that guy was there, and I was like, he wasn't even wearing his cosplay, he was just in regular clothes. Like, he still looks just like him. It was wild.
It's funny because I had a similar experience, although to this day I really don't know if it was him or not. We had gone to, I forget which con it was, I feel like it was maybe one of the ones last year, and I saw somebody walking around in like the best Captain America cosplay like you could think of, and I was like, that kind of looks like Chris Evans. And Chris Evans was at the con, so afterwards I'm like, was it Chris Evans?
You know, I've heard that some celebrities at cons will do that. They will dress up as their characters, and people are like really unsure, like, because why would they do that? Why would they dress up as their character at a con? But I know I've seen people do that before, and I think one time I saw Bryan Cranston was at a con, and he was wearing a rubber mask from Breaking Bad, but it was a rubber mask, and then he like tore it off, and it was him. It was like, okay. But it could have been him. It really could have been Chris Evans.
It could have been, and that's why, like, as you go to cons and you see Mandalorians walking around,
you never know.
Maybe it's Pedro Pascal. You don't know.
Could you imagine?
Fortunately, I'm not going to go around to every person wearing a Mandalorian costume and be like, can you just take off your helmet for a second?
They won't, because they're Mandalorians.
Oh yeah. they can't. This is the way.
This is the way.
That's Pedro Pascal's secret from being detected.
Exactly.
As he knows he can't take the helmet off.
I know. It's smart.
There you go. Good job, Pedro Pascal.
We know it's you out there.
You fooled us all. Yeah, he probably goes to all the cons and
he probably loves it.
Yeah, exactly.
I see that. Watching his interviews, I could see that.
And I have to mention this since we're talking about that, but going on the lines of STEM and kind of the content that I often do, Adam Savage of Mythbusters is very famous for regularly going around cons in full cosplay that you can't see who it is underneath, and walking around.
That's awesome.
So for people that didn't know that, that's something that he
does. Good
does.
to know. Good to keep in my brain.
Exactly. Raiden cosplay, awesome. Oh man, somebody pulls out a sword and I just get extra excited. So, well, I mean, I think this has been definitely a fun conversation. It's,
absolutely.
My podcast is predominantly an interview show. So I thought, what better way to do this at PopCon than interview my friend who is a huge nerd and fan of lots of fandoms, and kind of go down that deep dive of what excites you, what you see that excites other people, and things like that. Because I think there's so much that we can talk about at a con like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you asking me. I've been really excited about this, and it's been really fun. I think it was a great conversation. So
Yeah,
I love learning. Like I just like to learn about what other people like. So
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, all you folks at PopCon, I hope that you enjoy the last day of the con, soak it up, do everything that you can do, see everything that you can see, buy more than you probably should buy from the vendors.
always,
And have a great time at PopCon.
thank you so much.
All right, let's hear it for Outside the Box. That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I am here with John Marks, who, I mean, I can't say enough about the creations that you've made. I think the first time that I ever saw anything was just randomly at a con back when you had Toothless. And I just, my eyes just must have bugged out of my head with some of the coolest things that I'd ever seen. What made you get started in making these gigantic, amazing things?
It's a funny story because I fell into it backwards kind of. I had learned a trade of special effects art, but it wasn't until many years later that I had this idea to make a whole costume. And I had sculpted, molded, and made this costume, clay or latex foam. And it took me about 3 months to build it. And I realized about near the finish line that I couldn't fit it because it was so big. My hands reached out with hit his elbow. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do with this? And I thought, well, I'll just fill it up and make it like a prop and freestand. And somebody that I was working with at a gym that was just a wellness coach at that point, and they said, you should take that to the Comic Con. And I said, what's that? And, and so they said, yeah. And then I found out you could pay for a booth at the time I started off. And I just brought that with a bunch of other stuff because every Halloween I would go crazy for creations. I've done the ABC robot from French as a costume. I did the Bumble from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I squeezed that all into a 10x10, and I asked, for a nominal fee to take photos of it. And I realized I could make a living at it. And the next year I built Toothless because I was smart enough about 30 show in. I started asking people what they'd like to see, and I had like a little 4 choices to make, and they all wanted to see Toothless. That was the one. I was like, okay, so I'll dedicate the next 4 months to build that. And that's kind of just kept on snowballing. So I looked for the next idea next thing. So I did the Iron Giant. I've done the Battle Cat Panther, the Master Universe. I've done this right here. And so that's how I got all turned together. It was sort of one thing after another, and I kept my ear to the ground and asked people what they wanted to see, what I wanted to see.
Well, that's awesome. And just, really one kind of last thing that I want to ask about is specifically Appa, because Avatar The Last Airbender is something that I think is so beloved to so many people.
It seems to be, yeah. It's been doing well for me, yeah.
Especially even the characters who have been the voice actors who have played, you have them come to see Appa, and I'm sure they were amazed.
Yeah.
I mean, how has that been to see like the reception to something that means so much to so many people?
It is crazy. I mean, it was a shock to see how much of a response. I went from nobody watching the video of me finishing building this to after the first day that we did it at a con, that video went viral, and now it's at 3 million, and there's clearly a following for the show. I was very lucky last year. The voice actor did Zach. I'm forgetting Zach's last name. He happened to be at the very first show that he's ever done, which was in Chicago. And we had him here, and they had Sokka and Zuko there too, and they had all 3 of the guys up there on him, and that was like, and people just were like, the whole place basically stopped to see this. So it was, we're very lucky that these things started falling live. We had most of the voice actors come to the booth, sign their weapons, or something importantly, and we're hoping now with the live action, because that this came out on Netflix, I'm hoping that those actors will come and see this too. And it's funny to me because if you know the live action, they only get the upper half of Appa. They don't get the whole album. Everything else is CGI. So they don't even know what he really looks like in person. So I'm hoping they'll get to see this. But yeah, it was a huge following. People are very much excited about the season. They want to see the new show. They want to see this guy. So yeah, I'm very lucky.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to what else you create in the future because I think these
Any ideas? I'm always looking for something.
I'll have to come up with something. For those that are watching, please in the comments of the video, let me know what else you would like to see, and we'll throw it at John. So thank you all for watching.
Thank you.